Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to allow for just a few more minutes to allow folks to join the webinar, and we'll get started shortly. Okay, great. I think we can go ahead and get started. I'm going to pass it over to Tiffany to do the introductions.
Okay, thank you so much, Oswaldo. Good morning, everyone, or possibly good afternoon, wherever you may be viewing from. My name is Tiffany McRae, and I work with SMED supporting Silicon Valley Clean Energy, the Innovation On-Ramp program, grant program. We also have Oswaldo Martinez here with Silicon Valley Clean Energy, who is program manager for the Innovation On-Ramp grant. We do have Ali Crawford here as well, who is also with SMED and supports the Innovation On-Ramp program. I wanted to just jump in here now that we've had an opportunity to complete introductions. I just wanted to share a little bit about share a little bit about what the agenda will look like today. First, we'll look at who we are, who SVCE is as Community Choice Energy. We'll then discuss an overview of Innovation On-Ramp program, the primary reason why you all are here for the solicitation. And then lastly, we'll take a look at the grant solicitation overall, and then we'll have an opportunity for a Q&A session as well. There were just a few housekeeping items we wanted to touch base on today. We do want to let you know that the meeting is being recorded for the purpose of posting online. There are individuals who may have missed today's webinar, so we wanted to be sure to provide that opportunity to others to view once this has been completed. We would ask that you wait until the end of the webinar for questions. We do have a dedicated Q&A session, Q&A session for any of your questions or comments. We ask that you please utilize the Q&A option on the toolbar as seen here on the right-hand side. We will provide written answers to all questions on the RFP webpage by November 7, 2024. And then just to let you know, for the purpose of this meeting, attendees will be muted. So we just ask that you use the raise hand function if you do have a question or would like to speak. And it's this little bar here on the left-hand side of your screen with the arrow pointed. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Oswaldo, who will be sharing more about Silicon Valley Clean Energy.
Thanks so much, Tiffany. I really appreciate that. So before we jump into talking about Innovation On-Ramp, I figured we can just give a brief introduction into who we are as an agency in case you're not familiar with who we are in our mission. So very quickly, we are a community choice energy agency. Typically, we go by the acronym of CCAs. There's several of us here in the state of California. We each represent different service areas, and we work in tandem with the existing investor-owned utilities to provide electricity service to the residents and businesses. The way that partnership works is we are responsible for determining where he comes from by engaging in contracts with several generating facilities on the grid. PG&E is still responsible for delivering that energy to your home or to your business. And so for the customer, it's a pretty seamless, pain-free. It is a partnership at the end of the day, but the customer really is just seeing one bill that comes from PG&E. We split the cost now, so we're responsible again for generating that energy, determining where it comes from. PG&E is still responsible for delivering that energy and providing the billing service to the customer. And this comes at no extra cost to any customer. In fact, as a result of this partnership, they are saving some dollars year to year simply for being customers of ours and PG&E. In our territory, we serve 13 communities within the county of Santa Clara, with the exceptions of the city of San Jose, the city of Palo Alto, and the city of Santa Clara. And so because we engage in this arrangement with PG&E, this allows us to achieve two main facets of our mission. One of which is to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. And so by taking local control of our energy sources, essentially where that energy is being generated and coming from, it allows us to make that decision to procure from more carbon-free, affordable, and reliable electricity. And secondly, because we now have revenue that we're generating as a government-based agency, we can invest that money into innovative community programs that are typically focused towards decarbonization, again, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels in our communities. So the way that we tackle emissions is really through a three-step process. First and foremost, as I mentioned, it's through decarbonizing our electricity supply. Secondly, we want to electrify everything that we can whenever possible, and so that includes the built environment and the transportation sector. And lastly, we want to focus on ensuring energy efficiency and grid integration to the extent possible. This comes from a broad strategy that was published back in 2018 with broad consensus from our board and our community. And essentially, it describes who SPCE is, what we're doing, and more broadly, how our work relates to decarbonization. I certainly encourage you to look at this roadmap if it's something that maybe you haven't looked at before or you're not very familiar with SPCE. I think this is a really good place to start to familiarize yourself with our mission. And so interestingly, within this roadmap, we do highlight innovation as a key facet towards achieving decarbonization. You know, whenever we as an agency don't have the solution, we always look to the outside world to provide us with innovative solutions towards one of our decarbonization goals. And so as a result of this roadmap, we eventually, developed a broad portfolio of programs, some of which that include programs focused on the building sector. What I want to highlight here are the programs that we've geared towards the transportation sector. So again, we want to electrify our transportation to the extent possible. So we've provided a list of programs, some of which that are incentives towards EV charging, electric vehicles, some of which provide technical assistance for planning and engineering and installation of some of these devices. We've even launched recently a direct install program, as well as a virtual power plant program known as Grid Shift for our residents. So I want to jump into Innovation Onramp and exactly what it means as a program. So again, innovation represents one of our key strategies outlined back in 2018. And we really use this as a grant program. It's really a call to action to the outside world to help us address key technical, market, and policy barriers to achieving our decarbonization goals. We've run this program for 5 rounds back since 2019, awarding 13 pilots, awarding more than $1 million. And we've achieved a good level of success in this program so far. We've fully scaled 3 of those pilots to programs or to full-scale offerings. So some of that includes the EV Match a partnership where we eventually use their pilot to develop Grid Shift, which is our existing VPP program for residents. We also have Utility API, who provided us with Data Hive, which is a safe and secure database for third parties to access customer data on their behalf. And then most recently, we are engaging a pilot with Rockrabbit, who's providing a software to residents and contractors in our area to apply for multiple incentive programs that come from different providers simultaneously. So it's meant to kind of be like a TurboTax experience and kind of reduce that headache for residents to apply for all these different incentive programs. From round to round, we focus on different concepts and issues. And so the main focus of this cycle in 2024 in the fall is on multifamily EV charging. And there's a very specific problem that we want to address here. So we've noticed, maybe through some data that you see here that's provided by the EV Charging for All Coalition. Some of it is outdated, but I think it still drives the point clearly. And we've also just heard through conversations with renters and property owners that multifamily property charging, at least for the residents, can be significantly higher than what it costs to charge at a single family home. And in some cases, those costs for the multifamily property renters can be so high that they're even paying more than what it costs to charge at a DC fast charging station. And so what these graphs are trying to drive home is essentially a comparison of the cost between a multifamily EV charging station and a single family charger. And it can be so high again that maybe a multifamily home renter is paying, say, twice as much or 3 times as much to charge a vehicle as what it would cost at a single family home. So we see that a lot of this happens because, on top of the residential electricity cost, we can, it's just your standard electricity rate like time of use or an EV rate. Folks are also subject to idling fees, subscription fees, an upcharge, network fee, if that's also a thing, among other fees. And so that can add up pretty quickly. So our goals for this particular round of funding are twofold. First and foremost, we want to achieve a more cost-effective upfront installation of these EV chargers at these properties. And secondly, we want to demonstrate a scalable solution where we can show that we can bring those costs down for the renters to parity with single-family home residents. So to put it in other words, how do you reduce that disparity to charge a vehicle between a renter at an apartment, for example, and a single family homeowner? How do you bring that cost to parity or level it as much as possible? We realize it might be impossible to bring it to exact parity with what a single family home owner would pay, but we want to be as close as possible. We want to see how close we can get through some of the solutions that we intend to see through this program. So we intend this project or the projects that we fund to take place at existing multifamily properties, which we define as having 5 or more units, or alternatively, which has become quite popular over the recent years, see cheaper rates unlocked for renters at publicly available charging stations. And so we define that proximity as being within a half-mile radius to an existing multifamily property. We have a $1 million total budget intended to be distributed among, let's say, 3 to 5 projects. Each project awarded a maximum of $150,000 with a 1-year term, which can be negotiated given the size and complexity of each project. Folks do ask us from time to time, what do we mean by innovation? And so quite simply for this program, we mean innovative hardware. So it can be like an innovative charger or software embedded within the charger or both that can be demonstrated in a real world scenario. So we aren't looking for anything theoretical. We do want to see steel on the ground and something being demonstrated as a case study. When we talk about the word innovation itself, we don't necessarily mean something that has never been done before, that could be quite impossible, especially in this context. What we do mean is something that has relatively not picked up in the market, something that really hasn't been commercialized at great scale, or maybe something that has only really taken place in some other region, like another state or another country. We wanted to kind of bring that solution here to this market. And so by no means are we trying to limit folks to the ideas that we list on the website, which is what you see here in the slide. these are just some of the ideas that we started to think about, and we know that other folks are starting to propose in this space. But by no means, again, should you limit yourself to these ideas. If you have something that's just as creative as what you see here, by all means, feel free to pursue it. There's been a lot of talks about the sub-metering protocol, led by the PUC and being carried out by the investor-owned utilities, where an EV charging provider can enroll to become a master data meter agent. This essentially would allow them to install sub-meters on approved charging devices. And let's say a charger is connected to a house meter of an apartment. That sub-meter would essentially allow them to subtract all of the load coming from the charger and reassign it to the customer's residential electricity account. There's a lot of promise there, but there's also a lot of regulatory tape that may be precluding some folks from participating in the program. And so if that's the case for you, we certainly don't think that's the only route for folks to take. You may already have a sub-meter product that you've been working on that's maybe you're embedding in your chargers, but maybe you don't want to participate in that certification process, sort of outlined by the PUC, and maybe you want to engage in a sort of an individual arrangement with SVCE in terms of reassigning the billing costs to the resident from the house meter. That's something we're certainly open to and we have an appetite for. We would just need to see a really well thought out arrangement to feel comfortable engaging in something like that. We could also take a more traditional approach with direct wiring. We know that has already kind of taken place in some properties, but we haven't really seen it grow to the extent that we'd like. So direct wiring at a cost-effective scale is something that you can achieve. Please, feel free to pursue that as well. And lastly, again, if you don't want to work directly in a multifamily property, you can always find a way to unlock cheaper rates for these renters at publicly available charging stations, whether that's curbside charging or some parking lot with a charger. There might be creative ways to unlock cheaper rates for these folks in need at these sites. Lastly, again, I'm just gonna say, one last time, these are just a small list of solutions, but again, don't feel like you have to limit yourself to these ideas just because we listed them on the website. So I'm not going to go through this whole list regarding eligibility, that you can see all of this on the website. What I will say is if your organization has been providing EV charging installations, solutions for a while, you're automatically going to meet a lot of these eligibility requirements. For example, you're probably already a business that's been in operation for 2 years. You've probably already implemented several or some EV charging solutions, which would qualify you for one of these requirements. You're probably okay with sharing the results of your project. But again, look at the list, see if there's something that maybe might be difficult for you to comply with, and just let us know. Send us your questions. We're happy to address any concerns or questions that you may have. So what I did here in this slide is, just in efforts to kind of simplify the evaluation criteria, what you're going to see on the website are a list of 8 different sections of the criteria. I just bundled it into 5 here just for the sake of simplicity. We're really looking for folks with experience implementing solutions before. So we want to learn more about your key staff, their roles and their experience, expertise, qualifications, things like that. Any solutions that they've previously implemented. In terms of the project approach, we're looking into details about the background, the timeline, the budget that you intend to use for the project, the particular layout of the solution, whether you're going to be using, both hardware and software to achieve the goal. We're also looking at innovation again. So is this something that has already largely, proliferated in the market, and therefore we would really need to fund this through this program? Or is this something that has been struggling to pick up in this market and would be, a suitable candidate for our funds? And we also want to know if it's scalable. That's really important, right? So ultimately, one of the big outcomes of this program is to scale these pilots into something that can really, proliferate in this market. We can start with one site, but if this is something that we're really keen on, then we can continue to fund projects like these in the future. So the application process is pretty simple. The deadline to apply is December 13th by 5 p.m. We've created a SurveyMonkey form that is intended to act as the application. And before you actually start the application on SurveyMonkey, you should use the application template that we have available as a link next to the SurveyMonkey link. You can download this as a PDF and start formulating the responses before filling out the form. There's a couple of attachments that you may need to keep in mind. So one of them is to attach a copy of your organization's business license into the SurveyMonkey form. And then when you get to the end of the application, you'll notice that we do ask you to indicate your acceptance of or make exceptions to the terms and conditions of our standardized partnership agreements. These are the standard contracts that we offered for our awardees. We do intend to adhere to most of the language on this contract, but we understand in some cases, there may be a need for exceptions. We can't guarantee that we can make any of those exceptions if you kind of appeal for them, but we can at least review them and see if there's something that we can accommodate. So in the event that you want to make exceptions to some of those terms and conditions, we would ask that you attach a red line contract agreement to the application as well. So just a couple of next steps to keep in mind. So the pre-application questions are due next week by November 5th by 5 p.m. Give us about a week from then. I do apologize. We don't actually list the date for the responses here, but we do intend to provide responses by November 14th. I believe we do highlight that date at the beginning of this presentation for those of you who are intend to look at this presentation, the slides after. And again, the grant applications are due by December 13th. So it's roughly, let's say, a month and some change from now. We anticipate deliberating on awards and all of these applications for about a month. So give us until January 15th to announce the awards, and then give us about another 2 months to establish those grant agreements. For any, for example, any projects that will exceed $100,000, we will need to solicit board approval, and so that may take us a bit more time. But we do intend to meet the timeline that you see here. And then from the point of the contract, we are expecting about 12 months to complete the projects, but again, this can be flexible given the various risks involved with each of these projects. Okay, so with that concludes my presentation. I'm going to pass it over to Tiffany to field the discussion and Q&A.
All right, thank you so much, Oswaldo. I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A form here, but this definitely is an opportunity for you to raise your hand, just your virtual hand, and let us know what questions you have or clarifications that we can provide for you. Or if you prefer, you can well, I guess you have to let us know so we can unmute you. So if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, I do see one question coming in here. Do applicants need to engage the utility prior to submitting a proposal? Do applicants need to engage the utility prior to submitting a proposal? That's a good question. I'm seeing a response coming from Oswaldo right now.
Yeah, happy to answer that. So, as folks say, always engage your utility often and early. It's very, very banal at this point, but not necessary for submitting a proposal. It would be nice though, yeah, if you engage your utility earlier than submitting the proposal, but not necessary.
Great question. Thank you, Oswaldo. We appreciate it. So I do have a question here from Margaret. Margaret, thank you for your question. Let's see. In the experience section, 500-word limit is mentioned. Is that for each section or entirely. So Margaret, that's going to be for the entire experience section. So there is, so if we look at the application, for example, I know in the experience section, there are, I believe, 4 different subsections. So that's going to be for a 500 word limit for all of those subsections. And likewise, for any other sections that have a word limit, um, you'll also want to take that in consideration. So project summary, for example, has a 1,000 word limit that is just one question. But for the project budget, there are also subsections there. There's a 300 word limit for those 4 questions. Okay. We have a question here from Miguel Martinez. Does the solution need to be new, or can it have been installed at MFH parking facilities anywhere in California? And I'll go ahead and fill that over to Oswaldo.
It doesn't have to be entirely new. We're gonna evaluate to what extent the project seems innovative. So, like I was saying, it can be a solution that has been implemented before, but we really want to see to what extent it's picked up in the market. And so, if this is something that has already been, you know, commonly adopted by several properties, we're gonna probably see that as not being very innovative. But if this is something that has really just picked up in just let's say a few, um, in your words, MFH parking facilities in some places in California, then we might rank it a bit more favorably.
Thank you for that. We have a question, do grant funds cover community engagement? Do grant funds cover community engagement? Let's see here.
They do not. So one of the ineligible project costs or any costs, related to promotional activities or tenant engagement programs, that would also include engagement with property managers. So that would be counted as an ineligible project cost.
Okay, thank you, Oswaldo. And I see a thanks from Margaret. Thanks, Margaret. I'm glad we could answer your question. Where can we find the acceptance of agreement terms that was mentioned in the questionnaire? So that's actually in the application. If you go to the application form itself, the terms and agreements are listed in the application. But if you also look at the web page, there are participant agreements, both for hardware solutions and SaaS agreements. You can actually access those agreements and review them. Okay. And we have a question. Uh, let's see, you mentioned VPP, submetering, and other innovative ideas that have been tried before. Are you looking for ideas that have been implemented before to achieve this grant's goal? And Oswaldo, I think you may have touched on that that question a little bit more. Did you want to elaborate at all on if there was a similar question, but not exactly the same question? So did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're okay with using existing technologies out in the market. What we really want to see is a new configuration that would allow us to achieve our 2 goals, right? So cost-effective upfront installation, as well as bringing that disparity down between what a renter pays and what a single-family homeowner pays. And so that if there's a particular design that you have in mind with these technologies that would help us achieve those goals, we're more than open and do have an appetite for that. What we haven't seen in the market yet is really those costs being brought down for those multifamily home renters. And so that's what we're really keen on more than anything.
Thank you. We have a question here. Is there an expectation for the property to contribute a significant portion of the total project costs? So when it comes to the total project costs, we don't specify or designate how any costs outside of the SVCE grants are accrued or how they are not incurred, but how you obtain them or pay for them. So when it comes to the outside costs, if that would be between the property owner and the partners who are applying for the grant to determine how those costs would be either incurred or allocated. If a service upgrade is needed to support the EV charging stations, should an application be submitted to the utility before applying for this funding or in conjunction? Yeah, that's a good question. I know sometimes the timing can be a big factor. Sometimes you may have to wait on the utility or maybe in a queue in terms of the service upgrades. Um, when it comes to the 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 upgrades, we would recommend waiting until you've been approved for the project and to move forward with any of the activity you need with the utility. We can work with you, if you're experiencing delays due to upgrades or elements that are outside of your control. But we would recommend that you wait until you get the approval and can move forward at that point. But we do encourage securing, obviously, the location ahead of time as soon as you can.
Yeah, and I would say, if and when possible, avoid projects that exceed capacity that would trigger upgrades.
Thanks, Oswaldo. Under question 8, experience B, says list the key staff that will work on this project, include name, title, years at your company, years in position, and key expertise. And D, list any relevant experience, expertise, and qualifications. Please submit resumes if helpful. What's the difference between the questions? So I'd like to just take a look at the questions here just to make sure I'm answering. Let's see here. So this is under the experience section. The question that precedes that is asking that you describe your organization. So for that first question, we're asking for the staff who will, from your organization that will be working on the project and then including those details. So like you said, the title, the years at the company and the years in the position and key expertise. That second part, we're asking about the organizations that are going to be, that you'll partner with within this project. And we are wanting to know their level of expertise as well as their qualifications. So really those kind of first two questions, we're asking about your organization specifically. And then those latter two questions, we're asking about the partnering organization's experience and expertise. Okay. Do site hosts need to be identified within the application, or can applicants speak to the site selection process? So if you have a site host already, absolutely, we do have a question or two that asks or speak to the site host and who is going to be the site host, what the site entails, and a few other questions. So we definitely would ask that you speak to that. We do also have questions around if you have not secured a site host, what details you have available at this point. Do you have a prospective site host? What's the time frame in which you can expect to get confirmation from them? Do you have multiple site hosts that you're considering? So the application will navigate you through those steps based on your questions or how you respond. Do you have a minimum number of charging ports required to qualify for this grant? There is not a minimum number of charging ports. Obviously, we would like to maximize the impact for the community, the apartment community, and the residents within that community. So, the more the better, obviously, but there is no minimum number. Do you have the numbers for current average pricing for multifamily EV drivers? Meaning, what is the point of reference for current costs so we can best measure cost reductions? I'm going to ask Oswaldo to jump in to share any information we have regarding that particular question.
We do have a particular benchmark. What we do ask from the applicants in the application is to provide us with sort of a rough estimate of what they think the rate for KWH is going to be as a result of their solution. We do paint two other scenarios as well. One of which being, what that cost is going to be for the property owner to serve, let's say, 1 to 5 tenants over the course of a year. That's really what we're interested in benchmarking. So ultimately what we're benchmarking towards is the standard residential electricity rates that a single family homeowner pays. So like, let's say a time of use rate and an EV 2A rate that's offered by PG&E. We may also compare to the e-elect rate, which is the all electric rates that some homeowners have access to as a result of electrifying. But no, to answer your question, we don't. And if that's something you're really interested in obtaining, we can try to get some data out there. We know that PCE may have some preliminary data on what that average cost looks like, but it is something it's been difficult for us to obtain. A lot of folks are wary of sharing that information with with entities like us. So haven't been very successful, but again, just let us know.
Thank you, Oswaldo. We have a question around EV installation. So can the EV installation project be implemented in multiple sites or just one? Good question. So it would need to be one site, but obviously keeping in mind scalability, just going back to what Oswaldo had mentioned earlier, referenced earlier during the presentation. While it's one site, keep in mind during the process that we're looking to support a project that is scalable across different, or could be scalable across different sites and in the future. So, will you consider SAE J3 400 connectors and 277 volts for charging ports? Great question. We know that standards are changing when it comes to those connectors. When it comes to the connectors, we can accept the SAE J3 400. I believe we do base the connector requirements based on our multifamily program at this point in time, but we are able to accept that particular connector type.
Tiffany, you cut off for me just for a bit, but I think what I didn't hear, and I'll just maybe stress or repeat just in case folks didn't catch it, we do base our technology requirements on the multifamily electric vehicle charging installation program that we offer on the side. So we do have requirements or specifications for the chargers there that we intend to align this program with. But it's a really good question. Just to repeat what Tiffany said, we are open to those connectors as well. We understand that's becoming a growing part of the market. I don't believe we currently list that in our technology specifications on that document that we link. So we'll make sure to add it shortly after. Great question.
Thanks, Oswaldo. Right. Can we apply with an existing multifamily EV installation in mind to show value of our solution? And can the cost recovery include additional hardware, software development costs to execute that? And if I can just ask Oswaldo if you could actually respond to that question, that would be great. Oh, Oswaldo, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Thanks. Absolutely. Yeah, if you had a site in mind, or maybe you're already engaging in talks with them and you already had maybe a solution that you wanted to show, maybe this is a great opportunity for you to showcase cost-effective solution that brings costs down for renters. We're totally open to that. And I guess to answer your second question, additional hardware, software development costs. I think if you just break it down by what you mean by additional hardware, software, I think we can be more than happy to reimburse some of that. There are some ineligible costs that we list in our FAQs that would, include like what we would consider non-relevant costs. Like, let's just say like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think one of them was like, if you had, for whatever reason, had like the landscape because of an installation, like we wouldn't be amenable to funding that. But anything directly related to the devices or the installation, we're more than happy. It's likely that we're gonna reimburse that.
Okay, thank you so much. Would you consider a project with dedicated solution per EV condo owner parking and direct connection to condo owner panel without the need for a service upgrade? Yeah, great question, Frederick. That would be a consideration. We are, looking again for innovative solutions. And if you're not having to do a service upgrade, I think that would definitely help to, just mitigate any delays when it comes to just any bringing in that, third party or the utility and working with their timeline. So that is something that we would consider. Okay. And a nice round of questions there. Let's see here. Okay, I see a note from Deborah. Deborah, you have really old panels. Um, okay, so are you, Deborah, are you thinking that you're needing to do a, oh wait, oh, sorry, your question's coming in multiple responses.
Yeah, Deborah, yeah, to be clear, we're not precluding anybody who needs to upgrade their panels or get a service upgrade. We're just encouraging if you can avoid that, that would be great. But don't feel like you're being disqualified on that basis.
Thank you. Will you give extra weight to solutions that support automatic demand response capability?
We don't factor that as a criteria within our evaluation matrix, but again, if there's anything that helps bring costs down, is of a benefit to the renters in terms of what they have to pay for charging, we don't see why not. But I guess to directly answer your question in regards to that, no, we're not directly factoring automated demand responses as something within our evaluation framework.
Thank you, Oswaldo. And Deborah, it looks like you're showing that you have orange chargers. So you have orange chargers at your site currently, if I'm understanding correctly. Okay. Okay. So they're already purchased. So do you have to get, now are you referring to the property owner's buy-in, or are you referring to getting orange chargers buy-in? I understand that you didn't install them yet because of the state of your panels. But I think just to clarify, when you're referring to their companies buy-in, are you referring to the property owner, or are you referring to Orange? Okay, so two orange chargers. That's a really good question. So you own the equipment, you own the chargers at this point. Also, what would you say in terms of getting buy-in from Orange to support them? It seems like that might potentially be a partnership. Would we be looking at a partnership at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like you may be looking for somebody to install the chargers on your property. What I would encourage is to maybe look at our sister program, our EV charging incentive program for multifamily properties. It may be something that is applicable to your particular situation. I'm not just kind of hearing or seeing the comments. I'm not seeing if this would necessarily fit as an innovative solution to meet our goals within this innovation on-ramp program. So I'd heavily, just encourage you to check out our sister incentive program. It might be what you're looking for in terms of getting funds and getting funds to cover the installation, maybe hire a company to do that for you.
Thank you, Oswaldo. Okay, not seeing any questions yet. We may have some queuing up.
Yeah, Deborah, reach out to us maybe after this webinar. We're happy to put our contact information in the chat. If you feel like we're not addressing your inquiry in a satisfying way.
Thank you. So if we start the project prior to funding release, can we claim those expenses? So typically, with most of our programs, we do allow for planning expenses to be claimed, but in terms of installation and construction and the actual work of the project, we do ask that uh, you do not proceed with that part of the project, installing the project or installing the chargers and so on and so forth. If we do not have a current project uh, in sight, oh, we can see your screen there, Oswaldo. If we do not have a current project in the area, but have multiple case studies out of state, can we submit? So to make sure I'm reading that correctly, if we do not have a current project in the area, but have multiple case studies out of state, can we submit those? So when it comes to in terms of we're looking for a project that will um, that is obviously centered. If we're looking for an on-site solution, for example, has a property that is on-site in the Silicon Valley clean energy territory. So outside any projects outside of the SVCE territory would not be eligible in terms of an on-site solution, on-site project solution. Okay, I'm just waiting. Okay. Not seeing any open questions, any other open questions at this time, but we definitely still have time for questions if you have them. So please feel free to continue asking. We're hearing some really great questions. And Oswaldo did place uh, both of our contact information in the chat. So if you wanted to reach out directly, please feel free to do so. If you had maybe a little bit more involved question or wanted to just ask another series of questions or whatnot, you're welcome to reach out to us directly.
Great. I'm just going to add two more things, seeing that there's no additional questions. So one is we are certainly open to fostering partnerships among the folks that attended this webinar. So if you'd like to have your contact information shared with the rest of the group, let's say maybe you are more in the manufacturing space and you're looking for somebody to maybe assist with the installation, we're more than happy to share your contact information among the group to foster some of those partnerships. We also occasionally talk to property owners who learned about this program. They want to participate, but we don't allow property owners to apply themselves. They're really just signatories to providing, permissions to work on their site. We're happy to provide their contact information with this list of folks attending this webinar in case there's any interest in reaching out to them and seeing if you can form a partnership there as well. And the other thing I was going to say is, folks didn't ask this, but I just want to make sure that it's clear that you can stack in funds with our multifamily EV charging incentive program if your project costs ends up being higher than what this grant can cover. And for those of you who may be participating in very similar funding programs, let's say maybe some of you are participating in Peninsula Clean Energy's sub-metering protocol, or maybe some of you are interested in participating in the CEC's sub-metering funding pathway. You know, there's opportunities for us to collaborate and stack funds there as well. We just want to make sure that our funds don't exceed the total project cost, and then we would just want to see a good breakdown of the cost to see what our funds are covering versus what, let's say, another entity's funds are covering. But totally open to those possibilities as well.
Thank you, Oswaldo. We did have another question populate here. It's regarding Data Hive, the Data Hive database, and asking if it includes power consumption profiles for individual properties. I do not know that question or the answer to that question. Oswaldo, uh, would you happen to know? And if not, maybe we can get that information from the Data Hive program manager specifically.
I believe so, but let's just we're gonna publish the response to that question by November 14th. So we'll include it in the list of questions and get back to you. But if you want a more prompt response, just feel free to drop your email and we can reach out to you. We'll just want to confirm with the folks who are managing that platform to be 100% sure. I believe so, though. My gut feeling is telling me that yes, we can get load profiles for individual properties.
Thank you for that. Okay, let's see here. Any other questions at all that we can answer for you? Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions at this point. But again, you're welcome to reach out to us. Oh, here we go. Let's see. So will you guys be willing to recommend EV solutions, or are you approaching it as vendor agnostic? It's a really good question.
Vendor agnostic. I think one concern that we do have in mind is, you know, there are companies that have been going bankrupt, like NOx. So, you know, a lot of the juice box chargers are now practically obsolete. We've seen the same thing happen with FreeWire. So we do worry to some extent about the type of product that's being used, but we're largely being agnostic. Personally, I don't feel like I'm in the space to decide which technology we should be going with. So I would say that we're largely being agnostic. We're also not in a position as an agency to really tell folks which product they should be using.
Thank you for that question and for that response. Any other questions? We still have some time here. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Not seeing any other questions at this time. I know we had some really great questions during this Q&A session here. Let's see. You're very welcome, Deborah. You're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate your questions. Okay. Yeah, I think that maybe did we want to, Oswaldo, did you want to just kind of hang out until the end of the session, just in case there were any other lingering questions that came through in the next few minutes?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can linger. If you guys want to drop off, feel free to do so. Again, we're gonna post the recording of this webinar on the website shortly. You can find it on YouTube. We'll also post it on the webpage itself. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to send them in by November 5th so we can answer them promptly and publish all of the responses the following week.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, starting to see some folks drop off. Again, thank you so much for attending the webinar. We really appreciate all of your questions and your attendance.
Thank you so much. We'll be here for anyone who has any other questions.
Okay, I think we can conclude the webinar.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Nice job today. I am just capturing the questions here. I don't know if Zoom is going to produce a report for all the questions. I was just capturing them.